Welcome back to Next Gen Console Watch, our show following all the news and rumors on the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series. I am Seth Macy, and I am joined by Ryan McCaffrey, host of IGN's Xbox podcast, Podcast Unlocked.
Happy Tunic week, Seth.
And to you, and Jonathon Dornbush, host of IGN's PlayStation podcast, Podcast Beyond.
Beyond and happy chaos week to you.
Ooh, we will be getting to some chaos. We will be discussing upcoming exclusives for both Xbox and PlayStation. So, PS5, Xbox Series first-party exclusives. What is next for each console? Jonathon, I want to start with you. We have seen something of a deluge of games coming to PS5. We had Horizon, Gran Turismo. Please tell us what is coming PlayStation 5.
Yeah, so PlayStation, in terms of their first-party exclusives, they tend to favor the earlier parts of the year, so it's no surprise that we saw, as you mentioned, Horizon and Gran Turismo already this year from them. We're still waiting on an exact release date for God of War Ragnarok, of course. That's the big one. It's tentatively still scheduled for a 2022 release. We haven't really seen anything since the PlayStation Showcase, I believe, last September, where we got like a big deep dive into the gameplay and sort of a gameplay reveal. I did an interview with both the new director and the director of the 2018 game, sort of in conversation about where the sequel's going and all that. But other than that is like the really big one to look ahead to on the docket for this year. That said, of course, you know, PlayStation went on a bit of an acquisition spree last year, and it was a lot of studios that had just put out games, so we're probably looking a little bit a ways ahead. But right now, confirmed from Insomniac, we know that next year, 2023, as of this moment, Spider-Man 2 is scheduled for, which we got a reveal trailer for at that same PlayStation Showcase in September last year. And also at the time, we got the announcement that Insomniac, because they never stop, is also working on Wolverine, another Marvel adaptation. And that one, we don't have a release date for. I would say at the earliest, probably 2024. We're probably looking at that one, if not maybe even a little further out, depending on, you know, how production goes and everything, as we are still sort of in a at-home / hybrid work situation. But those are the announced main PlayStation first-party games. Now, we also know about Horizon Call of the Wild, which is coming for PlayStation VR 2. We still don't have a release window for PSVR 2 as a brand new headset, and so we don't have a release window for that Horizon spinoff as well. But we know that's on the way, and that's sort of a joint production between Guerrilla and one of the more recent acquisitions from PlayStation, which is Firesprite. Other than that, things are a bit of a mystery. There's a lot of potential for things, and a little bit of sort of guesswork that we can do and assumptions that we can make about projects that are possibly or most likely in the works. But that's what people can look forward to, you know, concretely announced as of right now.
Do you want to make any predictions as to when we're going to hear some more God of War news? Because I know that's what everybody wants to hear.
I hope soon. Selfishly, I think looking, you know, we took a look back recently on the site at a history of when PlayStation has done their state of plays and their showcases. And over the last couple of years, we've seen that when they do a PlayStation showcase, that's kind of where you get the biggest PlayStation reveals. Last year, I believe they did one in May and September. And then in 2020, I think it was June and September. So I wouldn't be shocked if sometime in May to June window is probably the safest bet at when we'll get a look. That's, of course, not assuming that God of War comes out in June. You know, if it's set for a release date like that, we may see something earlier. And June is a window that PlayStation does like to release games in. They released The Last of Us 1 and 2 in June. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart came out in June. So that's potentially a window if the game is ready for then. But if not, I would say most likely if they do a showcase in that window, that's probably when we're going to see more. And probably other you know, things that need to be announced from PlayStation, because their studios are working on a lot of different projects that just aren't confirmed or revealed concretely yet. But, you know, for years we've been knowing, ever since it didn't come alongside The Last of Us Part 2, that Naughty Dog has really ramped up on a multiplayer project of some kind. That one's been in the works for a few years now. And so that could potentially be a project that we see that they've very much hinted at and implied is on the way. We could see that one potentially even this year. You know, from press reports unconfirmed by PlayStation, we've seen that there's allegedly a Last of Us remake in the works that apparently has shifted into under Naughty Dog's purview. That could potentially be on the way soon. And then, of course, you get into studios like Team Asobi, who released Astro's Playroom for the launch of the PS5 and have been a little quiet since then. But Astrobot was such a success, and his face is literally part of their logo. So chances are, another Astrobot game is probably in the works. There's a lot of studios that you can kind of dig into and assume what they're working on at the moment. We know some studios like Bluepoint and Housemarque, which are recent acquisitions, are working on new games as well. But a lot of it is up in the air, but it's a really exciting time because the potential is there for a lot of exciting stuff.
Yeah, I was going to say I welcome any and all Astrobot to our delightful future. So,
as do I.
Speaking of delightful, Ryan, this is not in the well, I guess it technically is in the future, but your review of Tunic came out today. That is an Xbox game. Would you give us a little bit of info on Tunic and then what Xbox has planned for the rest of the year?
Well, I will. I'm happy to sing its praises for a moment. It's not a first party game, so we're talking first party exclusives. But this was actually the development project of mostly one person, a guy named Andrew Scholdice. There was he had some help on the music and a little bit of the art, but an incredible, Zelda-like game with a little bit of Dark Souls influence in there. It is. I gave it a 9 out of 10 for IGN, and definitely encourage everybody to check out the review. It is spoiler free. Because the thing about this game is it doesn't tell you anything. You have to just figure it all out for yourself, but in the very best of ways. So do check that out. It's on Game Pass, which was a last minute announcement as well. So that's good. But yeah, 2022 is a little foggier than it was. I mean, in a sense, it's foggier, but in a sense, it's a little more clear. It's definitely a little more sparse at the moment than it had planned to be. So we will have continued Halo Infinite updates from 343. We're still waiting on campaign co-op. We're still waiting on Forge. So those will keep coming, as will Season 2 of multiplayer in May. And that's going to bring new map, new modes, actually multiple new maps and new modes there. But as far as new games, so Arcane, the makers of course, Dishonored and more recently Deathloop, which was a timed PS5 exclusive. We'll see that on Xbox later this year. But we have Redfall from them, which was announced at last year's E3 Xbox showcase with a date of summer 2022 on it. We've heard zero from it since. And while perhaps Microsoft and Bethesda are just playing their cards close to the chest and it will come out in the summer, the fact that it's already mid-March and we've heard literally nothing about that game leads me to believe it's probably not coming out in the summer. I think we'll just at this point be wondering, will it hit 2022 at all? If it doesn't, that's fine. Make it a great game. It's a new IP. Take your time. There's no rush. It's not like we have a shortage of great video games to play. But Redfall is out there. Remains to be seen whether that hits 2022. The big game for Xbox and across the industry. This is probably going to be one of the biggest games, period, of 2022. And that is Starfield from Todd Howard and the Bethesda Game Studios team. It's that team's first game since Fallout 4 in 2015. So 7 years. And then we know that they're going to launch right into Elder Scrolls 6 after that. They're already in pre-production on it, which Todd Howard told me when I visited him last fall to interview him for Skyrim's 10th anniversary. So their future is mapped out. And then beyond that, you have, the one in the news this week for unfortunately the wrong reasons was the Perfect Dark reboot from the Initiative, a major report from Video Games Chronicle, that website, who interviewed a number of former staff there. They've had nearly half of the team leave, and primarily a lot of leads among them. There is a dispute there amongst about the management style and the direction of the game and the progress of development. The word from VGC is the game that this situation has now triggered sort of a soft internal reboot of the game. So not that Perfect Dark was going to be this year anyway, but that game is going through some things right now, and that team is going through some things. It had been announced that Crystal Dynamics was going to be partnering with them to assist on development. So there's still a long, long way to go for Perfect Dark. That's a notable story, since the Initiative of all these studios that Microsoft has acquired, the Initiative was the one that they were growing from scratch. And now that's not indicative of I don't think it's damning to Microsoft at all, but it's it's unfortunate that it sort of maybe validates their approach to buying studios, because it's, as the initiative shows, it's really difficult to grow them organically from scratch and get a game done, within several years. So we'll see how things go with that. Now, the Coalition, we know they're working on the 6th Gears of War game. Whether or not it's actually called Gears 6, that's unannounced. The Coalition had come out sometime last year and said, basically, hey, we're going to be taking more time than we usually do, but we know that's what their project is. Then you've got, out of Ninja Theory, Hellblade 2. Is that this year? Probably not, considering we haven't heard any date at all, any window put on it, but maybe that could sneak in for the fall at the earliest, I would think, but otherwise that's probably pretty likely for 2023. The Fable reboot from the second team at Playground Games, that is out there as well. It's likely 2023 and beyond, but super excited about that. State of Decay 3 is another one. Undead Labs, who that game was announced a while ago. We haven't heard anything from it since, so probably not a 2022 game. We'll be looking at next year. And I guess the one I left out, I know I'm talking for a long time, Everwild from Rare. That's another one that was announced a while ago, and we've actually seen that one a couple of times, but that one reportedly has been going through not a team issue, but just a game issue of just trying to figure out what that game is, and they seemingly have reportedly have been kind of going back and reshaping that one a little bit. So there's a lot out there. I didn't even mention the next game from id Software, which should be coming up soon. After Doom Eternal is a couple of years old now, so that might be a Quake reboot. Their job listings kind of hinted at that a little bit. So lots of exciting stuff, and the new Indiana Jones game from Machine Games, the makers of Wolfenstein. So it just doesn't seem to end. But at the same point, we're still kind of waiting. It's a little bit of a holding pattern right now for Xbox.
I think, sorry, Seth, just to interrupt, like from everything you were saying, right, it really made me think we're in this really interesting point, and it was happening for, I think, a lot of PlayStation players as well. But the beginning of a console generation is so often the time where it's kind of okay for companies to get away with announcing stuff, even if it is just like a splash screen logo, because you just kind of want to know what you're investing hundreds of dollars in a new box is. But, and they're still obviously very hard to find, but as we start to get a couple years into things, it is like, okay, well, we maybe almost heard too much. And because of the nature of production and just the realities of development, especially in the unpredictable world that we live in, things just take a lot of time. And so it's really interesting. I think no matter what console you have, it's a very, very exciting time, but it's also a time of just not knowing what the beats of the calendar going forward over the next couple of years.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah, completely agree. There's a lot of unknowns. It's an exciting time, an exciting year to be a gamer, but there's still a lot up in the air. So the year is still young, and I'm sure we'll get some really exciting announcements as we turn in from winter into summer. That's when all the good stuff comes. But let's talk about last week's poll. Are you planning to play GTA 5 on next gen? 71.4% of respondents said nope. Yes, for sure was 14.4%, and I'm not sure yet was 14.3%. Now, personally, on PlayStation, it's $10. It's going to be kind of hard for me to pass that up. Next week's poll, what unannounced exclusive are you looking forward to the most? Gears 6, Fallout 5, Quake reboot, new Infamous, Ghost of Tsushima 2, or a new Sly Cooper. That will do it for this edition of Next Gen Console Watch. Thank you, Ryan and Jonathan. We will be back next Friday at 6 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Eastern with more PS5 and Xbox Series X news. We will see you then.